You have been part of this very, very dynamic ecosystem. Okay, what made you choose to get into the entire venture capital fund? I mean, what was the reason behind it?
So, more than as a venture capital, I would like to be called as a venture builder.
Okay, there are people with ideas and they come to you. What is the mindset of the person that you see? I'm sure there are certain red flags, certain positives, certain negatives.
Yes.
If you can kind of highlight both, how are you going to address this? What do you all see and what are the yes and no's as per your?
See, the values is what we look at initially with the founders. So they'll have to be passionate about the idea that they're building. They'll have to be hungry. While Steve Jobs says, stay hungry, stay foolish. They need to be foolish at certain moment of time. They still need to be hungry. He has to be humble. He has to be grounded. He has to be grounded in reality.
What would you want from the government also now? You know where the government, what they are doing, right? What more do you think you would like to see?
People talk about these unemployment rates going high. It's more about not having the kind of skilled labor you would need in the ecosystem. We still have that drought of not having the skilled people. Most of the engineers are not employable. So if they are not employable, obviously for unemployment also that is a contributor. It's not that jobs are not available. Jobs are available.
Right.
You need the right kind of skill set to do a particular job.
So which company do you think, or which segment that we are working on, that India is working on, that you think has the capacity to really go viral, go explode like everywhere?
So right now,
your friends are out clubbing, but you want to become a conscious leader, and this is the right place for you. Welcome to the Evolvement Podcast, where we talk every fortnight with one conscious leader. We talk about people who have not just changed their own lives, but are changing the ecosystem around them. Today, we talk about the 21st century. The podcast for the 21st century is essentially required. The challenges that this century has shown us have been unique, but what is so special is also the opportunities that are coming our way. The type of jobs and opportunities were never before heard of. What is also special is that this is the time where startups are booming. India is essentially in the top 10 in the startup ecosystems, and we have seen that people have been changing lives. There have been startups for climate change, startups for sustainability, and you name it. Today, we are going to talk about the startup ecosystem, how it impacts you, how you can make your mark in a startup idea that you have. One more thing, when we talk about startups, people only have ideas, but that does not make or break a startup. The reason for the success and failure of a startup is you. Yes, the person who has the idea, who will ultimately run the business. Today, we are going to decode a lot about the startup mindset, the founder's mindset, with somebody who has been associated with the startup business for the last 10-12 years. I introduce to you Sriram Sastrigal. He is the Director of Venture Capital and Investments for Magnivia Ventures. He is also on the board for multiple other venture capitalist companies, and he is also the success coach at ISB. Today, we talk to Sriram. Hi, Sriram.
Hi, thanks for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be part of this podcast today.
You have been part of this very, very dynamic ecosystem. Okay, what made you choose to get into the entire venture capital fund? I mean, what was the reason behind it?
So, more than as a venture capital, I would like to be called as a venture builder, because it's not about only providing capital to these startups, but also enabling them to grow the business.
Okay.
So, the money may be provided as a fuel for growth, but essentially you need to be part of the ownership of the company. So, my experience into this ecosystem has been very unique for me, because the change that has been brought into the Indian ecosystem, especially over the last 9 years, has propelled a lot of people to come into this ecosystem. Even though I'm not a finance guy by profession, my venture into multiple stuff, even when I was working for industrial kind of setup, that has enabled me to also kind of provide method to the madness to the startups who wants to get into a stage where they grow the company.
Right. How did you get get into this space? I mean, was it a planned effort or how did it happen?
No, it is all serendipity for me.
Okay.
Because I was exhausted with working in the industry with big MNCs. I had gained a lot of experience. I worked with a lot of leaders who have inspired me to grow myself.
Correct.
And while I was working in the industry as my core being supply chain, but that during that experience, I figured out that I was able to do even stuff that other departments were doing.
Okay.
I was able to do marketing. I was able to do sales. I was also exposed to different departments during my initial days in my career. So I thought that okay, I am able to do this. Why don't I explore myself further by getting into the startup ecosystems?
Right.
And initially, I started investing myself in a few companies, and this kind of propelled me to get into the startup ecosystem. So this is all by accident that happened. There's nothing planned. Now my only choice was to take the opportunity at that given moment of time, and that's how I ventured into investment.
You know what, when I remember initial days when I used to hear about supply chain finance, and I used to all think about logistics and those warehouses and stuff like that. But now it's so much more dynamic. We hear about 10-minute delivery and last mile delivery, and those things are just opening up. Did you ever think that this could have reached that level?
Initially, I think as the time changes, as convenience builds up, as the technology improves, you start asking for more.
Correct.
Right. So that's how, if I want to have something in 10 minutes, that's the leverage that I have because of the technology.
Correct.
Because technology is an enabler, and plus earlier, like you mentioned, warehouses were called as garages.
Exactly.
Right? It was just a go down. I mean, even today in India, you call them as a go down. You don't call them as a warehouse, because in UK or US they have a more respectable way of calling it as a warehouse rather than the Indian way of calling it as a garage or a go down. Now with the kind of technology that we have seen, which has flourished, and also with the kind of trading that takes place within the vicinity, like we have stores within our vicinity, like we have medical stores, we have grocery stores. Now people have become laggards, so to speak, because they don't want to go out anywhere. They need convenience.
Correct.
And that is also causing another area of pharma companies taking advantage of that, because people are not moving around.
Right.
So you sell more medicines.
Correct.
Right. That's also not the way in which you want to run the world, essentially. But with this last mile and these things coming up, I had never imagined that we will come to a stage where you will have last mile, hyper local, 8-minute deliveries. Now electronic goods, which are like high value items, are also being delivered or promised.
Right.
But if you look at a country like US, they don't need anything like within 8 minutes. Even you cannot reach within 8 or 10 minutes in the US.
You can't.
But bigger countries than India.
Right.
In India, because you have stores and a lot of people, especially the labor force that we have, that has enabled us to look at more of a manual delivery.
It's so convenient. I mean, so I'll tell you what, I do have a house in Punjab. All right, it's a farm. It's a completely in the rural area. And believe me, when I go there, I am actually going on these apps to see which man will deliver. When I don't find it, and I'm like, oh, let me go back to Bombay. So that is the height of convenience that we find. So I think technology is creating such a big change in the world that accordingly, yes, we are. I was just hearing about this. I think the deep seek. Yeah. So what was happening there? They said that this has actually revolutionized the entire way people will look at technology.
See, it's just a build up to how OpenAI and Meta, which came up with new AI models.
Right.
They had begun this 10 years back. If you asked me 10 years ago if you had a machine which could answer you questions directly, I wouldn't have imagined 10 years back that you would have a machine which is answering you and also helping you to create content.
Correct.
Helping you to convert text into images or images into text. Now, DeepSeek has revolutionized in the same ecosystem where you already have existing AI models. These are called LLMs, large language models. Previous to that, we used to call them NLPs, which is natural language processing models. Right? Those were already available. It's not completely revolutionary. It's more of how do you build better AI models.
Correct.
The unique position of DeepSeek was they were able to do more with less resources. Like if you compare, say, Meta or Microsoft, they spend billions of dollars to come up with these AI models and answering machines, right? It's more of answering machines, according to me, right?
That's a very mild way of putting it.
Yeah, so that's how I look at it. And DeepSeek has has also helped us to understand that it's not only that deep tech ecosystem will only evolve in developed countries. This has been done by a country which is still developing, like China is still developing as a country. So this can be also done in India, and that's a very positive sign for us, because we can also develop deep tech ecosystem in India and also develop technologies which can come out of India.
Amazing. And okay, so now, let's come back to our main topic. When people come to you, okay, there are people with ideas and they come to you. What is the mindset of the person that you see? I'm sure there are certain red flags, certain positives, certain negatives.
Yes.
If you can kind of highlight both, because see, we have so many people who have that idea, and as per them, they feel I'll just go to a VC, I'll get the funding, and my idea will take place. Okay, how are you going to address this? What do you all see, and what are the yes and no's as per you all?
See, the values is what we look at initially with the founders. So they'll have to be passionate about the idea that they're building.
Correct.
They'll have to be hungry. While Steve Jobs says, stay hungry, stay foolish. They need to be foolish at certain moment of time. They still need to be hungry.
Correct.
Right. And the other areas that we look at in terms of values is he has to be humble. He has to be grounded. He has to be grounded in reality.
Yes.
So that's what we typically see in a founder. When we look at more than, it depends on the stage at which you're investing typically. If it's like an initial idea stage, which means the product is not commercialized. So at that stage, the way you look at the founders would be a little bit different, because you look at the founder and the idea. So while we invest in companies which are late seed stage currently at Magnivia Ventures, but if you're looking at pre-seed, seed stage, that's when the idea is flourishing. Then you have to establish the product, whether it's viable or not. Then you look for product market fit, whether the product can be sold in the market.
Okay.
Right. So it has to go through various stages. So depending on this stage, initially at the idea stage, we'll have to look at these values systems of the founder, and the idea has also to be validated by different people. Like venture capitalists are normally the ones which come for the idea, for the innovation.
Correct.
Then we have private equity, which comes at a later stage.
Right.
So as a venture builder, we look at these primary values. That the founder has to be humble, has to be grounded, he should be passionate about the idea. He also need to know how he can build a business later on. So for that, he need to have good set of advisors for him to build the idea.
Don't you all also have your advisors who will advise him, or?
Yeah, we also come in as advisors. So like if you would have seen that I'm also a board advisors to multiple companies, doesn't mean I'm investing in them.
Correct.
It's for example, say I'm a board advisor to a logistics company right now. They are building a digital freight forwarding solution.
Okay.
So, me being from the supply chain industry, I have got good networks. So they are at a pre-seed stage. When I say pre-seed, they are pre-revenue. They are not making any money, but they need customers who can try their product, build a product. So they need design partners.
Got it.
So that's where I bring in my value as an advisor to these startups, where they can get involved with a lot of shippers or people who are shipping goods or exporting goods.
Right.
So they need those kind of customers, because it's all to do with global freight. So that's where I value add for them.
Okay, got it.
In terms of my network and also based on my industry experience.
Right.
So that's the expertise that I come up with.
If someone wants to really get in touch with you and wants to talk about an idea, or is there any process that they can follow to get in touch with you?
So one is that I always look at people whether they are doing the homework or not.
Got it.
People just randomly send mails. People just randomly reach out on LinkedIn without doing a brief exercise on what Sriram is doing, right?
Right.
So they need to do a basic element check of, okay, should I reach out to this person or not?
Okay.
They need to do a study of the profile of the person they are approaching.
Give me an example of someone who's done something really stupid. I mean, let us get an idea first.
So, for example, it's very clear now we are using LinkedIn to a large extent.
Right.
So people have data or the profile details on LinkedIn itself. So one day, one random guy, he knew that I am not investing in tobacco products.
Correct.
He just reached out saying that I am developing an tobacco product which is actually helping you to cease smoking.
Okay.
But
it's a tobacco product.
Yes, it was a natural form of tobacco which is called nicotine polacrylic.
Oh my god.
Right?
Okay.
So he
Isn't
came
that more
up
harmful?
It is kind of a gradual or a very stepwise reduction of smoking, but this is not going to change. It's a more of a behavioral change. You need billions of dollars to change the people.
Correct.
And smoking behavior cannot be changed, because that's something like I drink a lot of filter coffee.
Huh.
So if I don't have 2 cups of filter coffee in a day, I'm gone because I can't do my work.
Huh.
So it's something which is very addictive. It's very
Correct.
difficult to move people out of that. So
Correct.
this guy reached out to me randomly and said that I'm developing this product, despite knowing that it's not as per my philosophy. So just reached out, and I as a person have to reply to everybody. So my philosophy is that I need to respect everybody, whether it can be silly.
Right.
Reach out also, but I ensure that I reply to these guys saying that I'm not the right person, but this is something you need to discover on your own. And there are multiple incubators that have come in, right? So you can pitch ideas to these incubators. So multiple coming, almost every 20 kilometers you will find an incubator right now within the college or outside the college. There are private incubators.
Everywhere. Even NMIs I know has the Atal incubation
AICs
center, and so everywhere they've come up in these colleges.
Yeah.
I think even engineering colleges, IIT. They all have their own incubator
labs
cells.
Also.
Correct.
Atal tinkering labs.
Exactly.
Right. So there are ways around it, and essentially more than that, if you see the startups that have come, especially in India, not necessarily that you have to go through an incubator. If it's a personal thing that you have faced as a problem, then you just try to build solutions.
Correct.
And you need to seek validation from others also.
Yeah.
Because you need to have a neutral opinion on the idea that you're building.
No, because what happens is they're so convinced about the idea, and they don't just give you statistics for their idea. They give you the complete, like if they have an e-commerce idea, they'll say, oh, e-commerce industry has so many billions happening. That's not going to work for you, right? They have to kind of be a little more realistic.
So there are a lot of startups that are building the same stuff. Like in the e-commerce, there was a doctor who approached me saying that I'm building a last mile delivery for pharmacy products.
Okay.
Right. There are these e-commerce companies which have already tested and they have burned fingers. Like
right.
Swiggy and all have done that. Flipkart actually acquired a company called Flipkart Health. They called it their Flipkart Health Plus. So they have tried this because it's highly regulated. You cannot just dispense any drug without proper regulations.
Right.
So there are doctors who are trying to solve these problems. There are multiple people coming because of the peer pressure sometimes. Sometimes they don't know what to do. They just come up with an idea without knowing that there are multiple people already doing it.
Correct.
So they are not able to find the white space.
Right.
So so to speak, to really see whether they can.
Right.
They need to have more execution. If execution can also be a moat. The idea would be the same, but if your execution is way better than others in the market,
correct,
then investors might feel that let's look at execution as a moat for them.
No, because I'll tell you what, I have now so many people that I'm meeting in all these networking meetings. I'll tell you what, every 1/10 of the crowd all have an idea for a startup. They are working on apps, they are working on ideas, they are working on pitches, and everyone you see, like out of 10, one is working on that. That is the current. But you know something, I look at it very, very positively. I look at it, see, I think the time when I started working, there were no opportunities in the market. Either you go for a corporate job, you take whatever comes, or people used to tell me become like, for a woman especially, I was like, become a teacher, become a nurse, or like this is the option given to you. Like you don't have more option, but now you see people, amazing options, and all self-employed.
See, I think it's more of a mindset change that has happened.
Okay.
It was not that opportunities was not available. It's more of a mindset change.
Right.
Because at that point in time, if you look at, say, even in investments, father and mother would only invest in real estate, right? Because they know that that's the only instrument which you'll appreciate.
Right.
So people were after buying properties, right? So it's more of a mindset change that has happened now.
Right.
Because the culture has changed in the way in which people are looking at India right now.
Correct.
And also people have, especially if you look at the demographic dividend right now, like India average median age is 28.6 years right now. So if you look at that data and also compare that with the other economies like Japan and China, they have leveraged that young population. So we have almost 60 to 70% of the population is young.
Correct.
So we have young people who are looking at these ideas. They have a cultural shift.
Right.
People are also traveling a lot outside.
Exactly.
So there is a change in the way they'll look at different things. There is a global perspective around how we are building in products.
Right.
So these all have really helped us to really think
make this change, the quantum leap that we have taken.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing which I definitely want to know is when you get somebody, now somebody is coming pitching an idea, what is a red flag for you? Like I know you're saying that he has to be genuine or whatever, but what is a red flag? You say he's humble, but what is a red flag that immediately you say, "Nahi, what, even if the idea is good, no, we cannot take this person across"?
See, there are various cases that I have seen, right? So one of the cases, so I thought maybe with an example it will be much better to explain this
Definitely.
segment. So there were instances where, see, startup world is a very small world, right? You almost know every one of them.
Correct.
So there was one instance where a founder had pitched to somebody for a company which was into D2C.
Okay.
So he had pitched to an investor already where he could not sell the idea to him.
Okay.
Right? And the data that he had provided for them initially was way too bizarre in terms of giving unrealistic numbers.
Okay.
Like it was like 100x he will grow in 1 year
Acha.
without knowing how he will get there.
Okay, got it.
So that's a red flag for me in terms of having very unrealistic numbers. You can be ambitious, but you cannot be unrealistic.
Correct.
So that's a red flag. For
Definitely.
me.
Yeah.
And I got to know about this because he showed me a different version of the story when he pitched to me.
Okay.
And I got to know from one of the investors who had already looked at his pitch, and that's how I got to know that it's not really
But
somebody.
maybe he would have, faced a rejection there, and maybe he would have come here and revised his pitch.
He had actually come up with a much higher number.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it was a much higher number. So he had
Okay.
multiplied it by almost 5x more than what he had showcased to them. So that's definitely not a great sign.
Right.
Another way I have seen is, especially like I mentioned about the stage of funding, right? So there was one founder again in D2C space. He was looking at exporting from India because, as you know, in the dairy business, it's Amul or the big players that are already there. And as Indians, it's very difficult for them to convince about different kind of a milk to sell. So he was looking at expos into different developed countries, and he had come up with an idea of saying that I had secured orders from X hotels, Y hotels, from this chain.
Okay.
And while he was pitching to us, he was always becoming very defensive, saying that I have this proof, I have this order. As an investor, we don't ask for proof. We have a due diligence process that is anyway going to happen.
Correct.
So he was, after every statement that he was making, while he was explaining the numbers, the
Correct.
projections, and who's going to give the order, and I was like, okay, you have this. Okay, I know that you have these numbers. I'm not asking for the proof right now. So I was becoming very defensive to show that he was seeking validation from the investor at the first round itself. So this shows that he's not patient.
Correct.
Founder should have the patience because it's a long term that you are into the startup. You cannot really predict the growth. It's all projections. It's a forecast. You can't really go by the numbers.
Right.
So he was very defensive. So that's kind of a red flag for me because he's becoming very defensive. And then I asked certain questions, like he had shown some providers like Swiggy who were part of his customer profile.
Okay.
And when I asked him certain questions about why did you move out of Swiggy, what is the reason, he was saying that the pricing was an issue because they were taking in more.
Okay.
But he was showing no numbers in the marketing expense. Then I was saying that you are not spending anything there. Why would Swiggy just randomly pull you out?
Right.
And the issue was he was not having stocks.
Oh.
Like if you don't have stocks, nobody will take you.
Correct.
And
Obviously.
if it's all going there, so he was putting it on some other reason, saying that he didn't have marketing expense, he could not do it. So that was not the reason. The problem was he was not having stocks.
Right.
He could have told that because I need money to produce inventory. That's what I would see.
Yeah, the genuineness also comes through.
You need working capital for you to build more volumes from the manufacturer. So you need some money for that.
Correct.
And for me, I have to decide whether I have to give in the form of equity or a debt.
Right.
I can give a debt when he has recurring revenue. So he doesn't hourly pay the monthly EMIs.
Correct.
Right. So either you do it in terms of equity. If you get equity also, you should call out saying that why I'm asking money for.
Correct. And this is my projection. And this is the areas I'm looking for.
So he was
you
getting
can't
very
misuse
defensive.
funds also. You can't take it for marketing and then put it for something else. Yeah.
And you have to be honest. First, this founder have to be honest to themselves first.
Okay.
That needs to be. This is not something which I can teach. It has to come on their own.
Yeah. No, recently I think 5-6 months back, there was this founder from Bangalore somewhere, some outskirts of Bangalore. He had come to me as a client and someone had referred me, and then I didn't take him on as a client, nothing happened. But he was so convinced that he had a 100 crore idea. Okay, he was so convinced. I think it was into flavored water, something like that. so convinced. But believe me, a 3-member team, and that also he's fighting with the members, like whatever was happening. So I also mentor certain founders, and
Right.
are you all sure what you all want, or what is the funding, what is the idea that you have? He was so unsure of himself. He kept backtracking. So somewhere I think I was recollecting, when you mentioned that, he's not even sure what he wants.
Yes.
And he is just showing his projection, and he's literally like, okay, I'm going to Singapore, I'm going here, I'm going there, but you don't have funds for your own manufacturing. What are you trying to achieve there? So that doesn't work out somewhere.
Yeah, and also there are instances where you find this peer pressure that okay, मेरा friend ने ये बनाया है, मैं भी बनाता हूँ कुछ.
Correct.
So that peer pressure is there. So they are not living for the idea they want to develop. Somebody is into lingerie, I also want to do lingerie kind of a segment. This guy Zepto has done this, so I want to do something like Zepto.
Correct.
There are these companies, like I have gone for these networking events, they come up with the same last mile delivery ideas. Right? Doesn't mean Zepto has got $1.2 billion of funding, doesn't mean that you will also get that funding.
Your idea should have been there before Zepto.
Not exactly like Zepto. Zepto's model was little bit in terms of change in the way they were running the business.
Correct.
That was there. It was not that it was not available. The quick commerce was there. It was not that because Zepto came in, it was funding was coming in.
Correct.
Different reason altogether.
Yeah.
So there are these peer pressure. People want to prove something. That pressure is that कि मेरे को भी कुछ करना है.
मेरे को भी करना है.
कुछ करना है तो idea भी रहना चाहिए. They just generate a random idea which is already available.
No, such people, I don't think they can run the business. They can just come up with the idea, but I mean, for someone, because you are working with them, you're not just putting in money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how does that transpire?
So, there might be
What
ideas.
if they can't run the business? Have you faced such a thing also?
As of now, in my experience, I mean, I have heard stories, but personally not experienced these kind of startups where they don't have any money, they don't have the runway, they have overdraft, right? So, the thing is, obviously, we'll tell them, please shut it down and give back the money that you have as an investor.
Right.
That's why we have that liquidation preference mentioned in the term sheets.
Okay.
That we need to get 1x. That's a safety for us.
Right.
So I've seen founders who have shut down and gone on to work on different ideas. So it's not necessary that you the same idea. You can get into some other. If it's a failed startup, you can get into another venture as well. So
correct.
Not essential that you stay on with the same idea. Just move on to another.
But basically, काम करना आना चाहिए. You should
business
know.
बनाना आना चाहिए. धंधा बनाना आना चाहिए.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the entire thesis is on whether you are able to do business or not.
Correct.
Startup, you can register a company, I can get some idea validated, I can get some initial capital from my family, friends and all.
Right.
Right. But end of the day, मेरे को customers मिल रहे हैं क्या, कोई खरीद रहा है क्या मेरे से, मैं किसी को खरीदना है तो मैं उनको कैसे करूँ कि उन लोग खरीदे मेरे से.
Correct.
How do I sell the product?
Right.
You need to have a very good GTM strategy, which is go to market strategy. These things have to be there in the founder also. Like especially if I have found many tech co-founders, they don't know how to do business.
Right.
And it's a solo founder who is a tech guy. He knows to develop good products.
Okay.
The thing is, he doesn't know how to sell.
Right.
So in that case, he needs to have a co-founder who knows how to do business.
So they have to have strategic partners basically.
So they need to have they cannot build on their own.
Right.
Like Steve Jobs, he is a very good guy, but he needed Steve Wozniak to help him. Like how Bill Gates was helped through Steve Wozniak. Steve Jobs also had another guy who was helping him on the back end.
Steve Wozniak. I think Bill Gates talks about Steve Ballmer, Steve Ballmer, and they also talk about there was the idea was for another person, and he was the third friend. He actually died in some skiing accident. Actually, it would have been a 3-people team. But that person in college only he died. So they always attribute that he would have been a very strong part of the entire equation.
Right.
So.
And the other way we also look at is a founder-investor match or a fit.
Okay.
So even for founders, they need to ensure that the investors are also right for them.
Okay.
It's not only about investing in the startup. Founder also have to do a due diligence on the investor that they are bringing on board. It can't be an investor who is like taking more than 10% ownership, gets a seat on the board.
Right.
Doesn't mean he has to only take the decisions.
Correct.
We believe that as Magnivia Ventures as well right now, we want them to run the business. We are there for them to support in whatever capacity we can, whether it's capital or introducing them to potential sale channel partners, or helping them connect with the right agencies, because for us it's all B2B or B2G, this business to business or business to government. So that's where we come in with the network partners that we already have.
Right.
So that's where founders also has to be vigilant that they have the right set of investors.
Yeah, because a right founder will take you places. Their connects, their even the way they handle the business model and what they are recommending and their experiences. Yeah, totally get that. I remember reading a book called Give and Take. So they actually talk about this founder and this investor, and how somebody came and this guy helped him out. I forgot the name, but he said that he didn't actually join in with him. But after some 6 months, 1 year of trying somebody else, he came back. So they talk about who's a giving founder and a giving investor. That is the entire concept. And so what is your success story? Like, what is the reason for your success?
See, I think it's more about keeping abreast with the latest trends, keeping yourself having that relevant knowledge which is up to the present. Things that were happening in the past, the same model will not work now. So you have to be very adaptable. You'll have to be very innovative in terms of how you are looking at stuff. Right. It's not one size fits all approach that will help you.
Correct.
One size might fit one at that point in time. Right. So I've been keeping myself abreast with what's happening.
Right.
Second is I network with a lot of people, because I like to be a perpetual networker or a connector.
Correct.
Because you like to hear different side of the story. This is more of a qualitative knowledge that you get. It's not all data based, right? So I like to network with a lot of people. You don't know which network will help you when. So that's the beauty of it, right? So that's how and there has to be, my philosophy is to meet different people at different point in time. If I meet somebody this week, next week I will not meet the same person, because it's not going to, utna status change nahi hone wale. Kya baat karne wale ho? Right? So you need to meet different set of people, travel a lot. So I travel a lot. So I have globe-trotted a lot. Thanks to my education. So I've done my masters in UK. So that has helped me to connect with the European ecosystem there. Then I went to work briefly in few other countries. So it has helped me to develop a more as a global citizen than just looking at only India or my own country.
Correct.
So that has helped. So one is the travel, then the network. Then I always keep myself tinkering with something all the time, because I'm an engineer. I eventually got into being a co-founder of a startup in Italy. Right. And that was through the travel, because I went to New Zealand for a project which was into sustainability project. It was called Sustainable Coastlines. So I was based there in a dormitory in 2022. I just taken a break. And there I met these co-founders who were actually working on a portable dishwasher.
From Italy?
From Italy. And they also were just that, like, it just happened by accident. It was not like I pre-planned this, that I'll meet these founders there. And at that time I was from a supply chain industry experience. They needed somebody to help them look at the strategy, how they should design their product, how can I provide them the manufacturing experience, because I'm an industrial engineer by background. So that's how I connected with them. They said that you come on board with us, you also invest in our company. So I met them after the project happened. They recalled that we met this guy called Sriram. Let's meet him again because we need support. And they eventually met me again virtually, and then they asked me to support them with identifying manufacturers for them. And that's how, because of my manufacturing experience, I could connect them through different partners. And this partner was somebody I met some 10 years back. And I connected with them, and they kind of connected with the other person who was based in China, and they got their manufacturing set up there. Eventually they got 6 patents registered. The recent was some 6 months ago, where they got a US patent.
Lovely.
And they have also raised another round now. And so I'm still part of that company as an investor and advisor. So that's how I keep on meeting and then learn
being in
something.
The right place at the right time. And I'll tell you what, I've also found that many people with these ideas, they're not ready to go out there. They feel idea will get stolen. They feel something will happen. Somebody will do that. And they don't meet people. They don't even hone the idea. They don't see what can go wrong. I think they need to really work on that idea and themselves also. Come out of that shell.
See, there are things beyond your control. You might spill the beans somewhere at some event. You don't know what happened. But end of the day, it's you only know how to do it. So that's something you still have. So you know how to do it. That guy might have the idea that you have. but he doesn't know how to do it. That's the strength you have.
Correct.
Unless and until you know how to do it, it's safe. Even the point in time somebody stole your idea. But that's something beyond your control. Like
the execution, it's all in the execution.
It's about how you do it.
Exactly.
And when do you do it? I mean, like you mentioned, it has to be the right place, right time,
right people. Okay, you know what? The kind of startup that we are seeing, the ecosystem which is coming up in India, and I was just reading that I think we have 50,000 jobs across India and startup ecosystem. Maybe this is like a year old, the headcount numbers, but it's growing. Can you tell me what would you want from the government also now? You know where the government, what they are doing, right? What more do you think you would like to see?
People talk about these unemployment rates going high, right? It's more about not having the kind of skilled labor you would need in the ecosystem. So we still have that drought of not having the skilled people. Like
we do.
Engineers also, I mean, this has been discussed way long time since I passed out from engineering. Like most of the engineers are not employable. So if they are not employable, obviously unemployment, for unemployment also, that is a contributor.
Correct.
It's not that jobs are not available. Jobs are available.
Right.
But you need the right kind of skill set to do a particular job. So government has come up with some initiatives, but there needs to be more acceleration in terms of just that you set up more AIMs or more IITs or doesn't mean that you are giving the platform. You need professors also to train, right? There are 19 lakh doctors in India today, right? And if you look at the ratio of patient to number of doctors, it's going to be a hell of an issue for the doctors to look at, like say 10,000 patients for a particular geography.
Need more doctors,
So I'm just giving that an example because we need that kind of a training system.
Correct.
We need that kind of a opportunity to develop tier 2, tier 3 kind of a setup.
Right.
Kind of a hub and spoke model that you develop the skill set. So
no, I think as per me, I don't know. I want there to be, apart from that professional setup, like you have those, I think skill development colleges where you can just enter, where you don't have to do the entire entrance exam, this exam. I mean, somewhere I feel that is holding people back. There are so many people who are qualified when just that few marks, and there's too much of a run and a rush to clear those exams.
So this rat race is going to be there.
It's huge. It's huge.
That competition is going to be there any point in time. Even with startups, there are competitors, right? Like Zomato is competing with Swiggy.
Right.
That competition is anyway going to be there. I think it's to do with the education system entirely. Right from your school days, the education has to be in sync with what are the technologies that is discussed right now, right? So the education system has also to evolve at school level.
At school level.
Right? That's where you need to give a lot of practical training to even students.
Correct.
More than theory, they should work on more practical stuff.
Today, so I had another podcast which we recorded,
Right.
And I was speaking to somebody who is Dr. Anita Madan. She is the head of curriculum development for Lighthouse Learning.
Right.
Behind EuroKids.
Okay.
Guess what? What she said was, we need to move from a knowledge-based society to an application-based education.
Yes.
Like the education right now is only learning by rote.
Yes.
Remember it by, mugging karo, ye karo, and just give the exam. But now we need to move to an application-based system where you are learning life skills.
Right.
I think something that she said that really stuck with me. That was
right. I can share my experience. Right. So earlier क्या होता था engineering में कि definition रटो, total 100 marks से 3 marks तो guaranteed है.
Right.
अगर आपने line by line thermodynamics का law by heart किया है, तो आपको 2 mark 3 mark मिल जाएंगे.
Correct.
Once I moved out of India, I was doing my case study analysis at my master's program in UK. There people started acknowledging the guy who has actually defined it. इधर इंडिया में हम लोग एक्नॉलेज भी नहीं करते हैं कि कौन डिफाइन किया करके, जरा रट के उधर डाल के देते हैं, प्रोफेसर भी मार्क्स दे देते हैं.
करेक्ट.
उधर क्या होता है, यू साइट पीपल हु हैव डिफाइंड इट.
ओके.
सो यू एक्नॉलेज कि ग्रेटिट्यूड दिखा के मैंने आपसे सीखा है.
हाँ, एंड उसका क्या लॉजिक हुआ होगा, हाउ ही केम अप विद दैट.
राइट. एंड ही हैज आल्सो डन सम लिटरेचर रिव्यू.
राइट.
ऑन कमिंग अप विद दैट डेफिनेशन.
करेक्ट.
सो दैट्स गोइंग टू इवॉल्व. इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू बी लाइक अ स्टैंडर्ड डेफिनेशन.
राइट.
राइट. सो देयर आई थॉट दैट ओके, इसने ऐसा बोला है, तो I started applying that definition into different concepts in supply chain.
Correct.
Right. That was not like that the only theory.
Right.
Then I rephrase that definition myself. Then at least I acknowledge that I learned from him, and from that basis,
Correct.
these are my hypothesis, null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis. Then I went on to derive from that.
Correct.
So it's how you derive, right?
Very right.
That's how it is.
Very true. So you've worked with so many people who are leaders, What about certain leadership styles that stands out, and what do you think really works and what doesn't work?
See, I don't read a lot of books, frankly speaking, on leadership or kind of in the management of organization subject. But I have observed people, especially while I worked in the industry, I've seen people who acted according to the situation. So what the situation demanded and how did they respond to it.
Correct. Reaction.
Right? So it's more of response rather than being reactive to the situation.
Correct.
So I have seen leaders who are conscious of the actions that they take. They have been very good listeners. They know what they want to achieve. So they always look at the big picture.
Correct.
Like we say that politicians have to always look at the national interest first. So always the leaders who I worked with, I've always looked at the business interest first. Correct. So business is always at the top. Right. People are important. I'm not saying people are not important, but whatever is necessary for that given situation, leaders have to follow what demands for that certain situation.
Totally agree.
And leaders have to showcase different traits. You cannot have the same, like a democratic leader cannot be valid in a situation where you need to be aggressive at some point in time, where you need to fire people.
Correct.
Because they have not done their job, because they were not ethical. So there you cannot be democratic. Right? You need to be authoritative at such instances.
You cannot have toxic people in your environment.
And
even if they are high performers, I tell people, like I was in HR, I said, even if somebody is a high performer, if that person is toxic, he is going to spoil the environment. Do you really want to show that you are approving of a toxic person and putting that over there and gratifying that person? So I said, don't do that.
Right.
Take them out and appreciate the other people, get more good people on board.
Right.
There will be a small dip, but take that.
See, for example, I can share an instance where I was given a situation where I was the supply chain head for that company, and the business was doing negative 20 to 25% margin business.
Okay.
So it was losing money.
Correct.
While they were selling lenses, they were losing money.
Okay.
With each lens that they sold. Now, as a supply chain guy, where I can add value to the business. So I can add value in terms of how do I look at inventory, how do I look at procurement, how do I negotiate with my supply partners,
right?
How do I ensure that my warehousing cost or my delivery costs are lower.
Correct.
Right? How can I look at consolidation of my warehouses? Right? That's the thing that I can enable as
which
a
is your
supply chain
forte.
leader.
Yeah.
So at that point in time during COVID, we were not making much sales because everything was shut down. And so what we did is we looked at focusing on value added activities.
Okay.
Right? It's not that काम नहीं है.
Correct.
Business नहीं हो रहा है मतलब काम नहीं है करके नहीं है.
Right.
So that continuous improvement kind of an approach helped us to prepare ourselves for once the recovery happens.
Correct.
So we worked on projects where we could look at process improvements, we could look at scenario analysis. Then we also got the buy-in from other leaders who were also appreciative of, so the interest being profitable improvement करने का. Right. So I looked at some of the initiatives that we took. We brought in the teams together. We built something called as a cross-functional team as squads. Okay. Right. I, as a supply chain guy, had to manage the initial setup along with the business partner who was the CEO for that particular business unit.
Correct.
So I had to get buy-in from all the stakeholders. So as a leader, you need to be approachable.
Correct.
Right. And people should be like, हाँ ठीक है, Sriram के पास जाएगा तो solution मिलेगा.
नहीं, and also at that time, I mean, I think that was a very wise step. Normally क्या होता है जब धंधा चल रहा होता है ना, तो आपको होता है कि ये काम करना है, वो you're always running.
Yes.
ठीक है, and I think to use COVID as an opportunity to streamline was a brilliant idea. I think I have not heard anyone tell this as of now, by the way.
So we were a small market, and if you have worked in global companies, if you are contributing like say very low, like say 0.1% to the overall company's revenue, US guys or these headquarters won't look at you at all.
Correct.
Right. So we had to also prove a point saying that let's turn around this business. So eventually we took some time during the COVID period, we had a sales leader, marketing leader, the logistics head, the regulatory head all come on board with us to say that okay, let's improve something where we will look at priorities which will align with the business first.
Okay.
It's not only that regulatory ko approval लेके आने तो regulatory वही काम करेगा.
Correct.
Whether that approval is going to help the business is what they also need to understand.
Correct.
So they need to have a business perspective. So all the leaders should always think about business first.
Very true.
Right. So that's how we ended up being one of the small markets which got awarded the best international market for the next year, because we turned around from a negative double-digit margin to a positive single-digit margin within a year. Because the time that we spent during the COVID time in improving processes, I mean business नहीं था, right? And there was a conscious call also taken by the leader that ज़्यादा नहीं बेचेंगे क्योंकि push sales नहीं करना है. If we lose also for 15 days, it's okay.
Correct.
Let's not build a pipeline of inventory at the markets so that next जो cycle आएगा उसमें sale ना हो. So that conscious decision was taken. So during COVID, supply challenges बहुत थे, containers नहीं आ रहे थे, so freight was not available. There were instances where one of the biggest freight forwarders, his entire portal got under cyber attack. So containers book नहीं हो रहे थे उसके साथ. And I had only one vendor to look up to.
Right.
Then we had a BCP plan in place.
Correct.
तो जो कोविड के टाइम था हम लोग ये सब बनाए थे कि ये सब बीसीपी प्लान करेंगे, अगर इसका कुछ बॉटलनेक आ जाएगा तो हम लोग इसको मैनुअली कर सकते हैं. ऑल दीज थिंग्स हेल्प्ड.
राइट.
The sensitivity analysis
so
was
I guess we should
done.
tell our viewers that BCP is business contingency planning.
Yeah, so
if
BCP
in case someone doesn't know, let them know. Yeah, so we always have those SOPs on BCP. Every department has those SOPs on BCP.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were always behind these challenges where supply नहीं आ रहा है तो क्या करेंगे? Right now we were to decide कि portfolio rationalization कैसे करें.
Correct.
Because there were products which were only making losses. So we took a direct call that हटा देते हैं, even if it's like contributing to a very large extent to the top line. Let's stop those products because profit नहीं मिल रहा है उसमें.
Correct.
So all the tail end brands we took it out. We cleaned up the entire SKU because the number of SKUs we were handling, which is keeping unit, basically items that you sell. We cut that down. That helped in portfolio level profits being improved.
No, I think somewhere what you all did was from a short-term strategy, you all went for a longer-term strategy.
So we mixed both together. So it's a more of a balancing act we did.
Correct.
In managing short-term and also with the long-term
long-term.
in mind.
Correct.
Because so it has to be
balanced. Because some people, what they do is they only look at the numbers short-term and then the long-term suffers.
Right.
Or, so you have to balance that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and long-term, if you see, that's what they say, the bamboo grows within a year it goes from zero, like from the root to whatever.
Yeah.
But the root takes some 5 years to build.
Right.
So I think somewhere that is that strategy
that's
that you all
something
use.
called as an incubation period.
Incubation period. Correct.
For them as well.
Yeah.
But so what I'm trying to say is that this kind of helped me to even advise startups now that I've been through this cycle, I've seen these businesses.
Right.
That's a value that I can provide as an investor.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Which is very rare. I mean, see, you just come, it's not just money then. It's like what is the experience coming out? And
like I said, the global HQ was not providing us money because we were only contributing 0.1%.
Right.
So we did by refueling and reinvesting back the money to the profits that we were generating.
Correct.
In things that could help in performance marketing, put money in marketing then.
Correct.
Then
Very
we did
nice.
that, then did portfolio segmentation, rationalized it. It was a conscious call by the leader also, and we also have to embrace that idea of the leader.
Okay, we spoke about education, we spoke about engineering. What more do you think, what is the difference between engineering colleges here and say an engineering college abroad? Like, what do you think? The one thing you said was definitions, but I'm sure there are more things that we can do here which they are not doing. What are they? What do they need to now focus on?
See, I think it's all about making it, like you mentioned, more application based.
Okay.
Even today we are using content, or the syllabus is still very old. It's very archaic.
Okay.
Right. The way in which you see the design of the courses abroad is to what is relevant to the present and the future. Even today we are still learning about India being still a developing country. I don't know how long will we hear that India is still a developing country. We need to make that positioning statement also change.
Correct. Right.
So I think it's more of being more application based, being practical oriented, and engineering colleges also have to give chances for people to spend on more extracurricular or co-curricular activities rather than just sticking to the book.
Correct.
We have certain colleges which are doing that. Now again, it's to you as a person, whether you want to take that initiative or not.
Correct.
They can provide you the platform, but they can be a catalyst, but it's you who has to take a decision whether I want to pursue it or not.
No, we do hear, that IIT Chennai or somewhere has come up with this robot, or we hear about all these stories. But I don't think there are as many as can be. I feel there need to be more stories.
It's not about just being IIT Madras which is coming up. So there is a professor who developed a touch-based device where you can feel on the screen itself the fiber ka feel kar sakte ho.
Okay, got it.
It was called some iTouch something. So that was revolutionary because you wouldn't have to go to the shop, and so it was revolutionary for the e-commerce industry.
Right.
Because they don't need to set up stores.
Right.
आप घर पे बैठ के feel कर सकते हैं टाइल कैसा है, कपड़ा कैसा है.
Correct.
So it's not about IITs only. The idea can come from anywhere. So I have met startup founders who have come from like towns of Odisha, interiors of Tamil Nadu. So one of the investments that I did in a company, they are Madurai boys. They have developed a modular medical device for pregnant women.
Acha.
Right?
Okay.
So they have to come up with a bangle which can detect 36 high risk parameters for pregnancy to avoid a miscarriage or to avoid giving birth to babies which can have probable diseases later on.
Oh my god.
So they have developed that device, and that can also be worn by the child once it is born. So the child parameters can also be tracked.
Wow.
So उसका बर्थ कैसे हुआ, उसका क्या पैरामीटर्स चेक करना चाहिए. So the entire life cycle was planned by them. So these guys are from Madurai because they had the life experience.
Right.
Through one of their sisters who was undergoing this, so they came up with this idea. So it's not about IITs or other big colleges that we talk here about.
I'm going to talk about something which is very off topic for you. I know you don't like books, but there's one book.
No, it's not that I don't like. I read books.
But you read, but very specific.
Very specific to my interest area.
I'll tell you what. There's one book. Okay, now I'm being so weird. This is a very weird book. I'm telling you. I love the book, but there is a book called Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. It talks about the 9 insights to get evolved. Okay. Now I've loved the book. I read it when I was in 2001 or 2 or 3 somewhere. Okay, that book says at the end that the 9th insight. Okay, it's a little spiritual book. It says, "Aisa world aega. There will be such a world where we are going to sit at home and everything is going to come to us at the click of a button." I am not kidding. When I read the book for the first time, and I thought, I don't think this world will happen in my lifetime.
Right.
It was not possible. 2001 too, it was just not possible.
Right.
We didn't even have mobiles. Like we had heard outside India, there are mobiles there. Yeah, there were pagers happening and there were fax machines happening and stuff like that. And that time, and this was written like mid-90s. And he wrote that book and he said, this is the world that we're going to live in. It will be happening at the click of a button. And, and now that I see the world that we are living in, we are literally talking like casually about Mars, and we are talking about lunar surface, and like, can you see how casually we are? Like, we've got last mile delivery. Everything is happening so quick. There's a bangle which is recording 36 parameters. You don't even need to go to a doctor. You just check it out. Can you see the revolution that is happening in the world? Yes. Just 20 years?
Yeah, so every, like even in the AI world right now, there are new models coming in every week.
Okay.
So people have to embrace that technology is going to change every week right now.
Every week.
So you need to be quite well versed with whatever devices you have. Maybe someday you won't have this mobile at all. You can use it from your hand. You can call from your hand. Just keep the phone. Stay with the same idea. You can get into some other.
What are the most revolutionary ideas happening right now that you are impressed by?
Some of the things that I have observed myself is one of the startups. It's not in India, but globally it came up with 3D printing technology for producing tissues and tendons.
Seriously?
So, yes. So medically, so they are undergoing some process. So you don't have to wait like say months to get the tissue removed and replaced with a new one. You can produce it directly in the same room.
The DNA, the size, whatever required.
Just that they came up with this material technology which was like mind-blowing for me. I mean, it's still a 3D printer, but the way in which they are designing the material itself. So with less, do more.
I think they can even come up with
the cost is also getting
3D
reduced.
printed heart maybe for a transplant. I think that time is not too far away.
Right. I met one of the other companies again outside India. Like you have seen the underground metro.
Yeah.
They had to wait months 6 to 9 months to get a boring machine to drill the hole.
Okay.
Right?
The one at Coastal Road.
The underground ones that you see
Correct,
right now,
right.
the underpass.
Right.
Right. So that they had to set the machine itself. It took 6 months to set all the components. I saw one founder who came with a laser machine with a Roman arch, whereas boring is normally circular one.
Right.
This guy came up with a laser shooting machine, which can bore at 1,000th the time less than the current boring machine takes.
Okay.
And the cost it gets involved.
Huh.
You bring all the components in multiple containers because you have to assemble them together. This guy came up with just a kind of a miniaturized version of that.
Okay.
And the time it takes to bore one hole will be 1,000 times less than what it takes. Right?
Wow.
Cost is also lower.
Obviously.
It's just that he changed the shape. Instead of a circular arc, he came up with a Roman arch.
Okay.
And now this guy has got order from Kuwait, like $1 billion of projects, which can be used in building the grid technologies for EV, for utilities. So he came up with this revolutionary stuff that I have seen.
Wow.
This doesn't come in the limelight because it's not like your last mile delivery or because it's something closer to you, so you know about it.
Correct.
These are the things happening.
Yeah, definitely. And okay, so now India has got that ease of doing business. Like earlier, it was not the case. I've had
it has improved a bit.
It has improved. It has because I remember hearing. I was very privileged to hear Narayan Murthy give a lecture once. At BSc. I attended that lecture, and he spoke about his friends, and everyone came with different skill sets. And he said one thing. He said we should not get approvals. So he's like, to get approvals. So we said one of us has to go at that office every day.
Right.
And literally, like, it took them, I think, 5 months to get that approval, but they got it.
Right.
So I think India has moved definitely much ahead, much beyond that. But what else you feel should be there?
I think the approvals, like you mentioned, has improved. There are still some clarity required because of the new innovations are coming up. Government is also not aware of what kind of regulations they need to set up.
Right.
So government has to handshake with these new set of startups that are coming in terms of policy advocacy, policy design. So that still needs to be improved.
Correct.
At a policy level.
Right.
So I think that's some area that we need to, especially in policy design and advocacy.
Yeah. Okay, there's one thing which it's just a wish. It's not I see so many, MNCs coming to India and so many of those products coming to India. I have this burning desire that we see Indian companies growing and expanding globally. So which company do you think, or which segment that we are working on, that India is working on, that you think has the capacity to really go viral, go explode like everywhere?
So right now, like I mentioned about the deep tech focus that we have,
yes.
you will see a lot of space technology revolutionizing from India.
Okay.
Right? Because you have examples like Chandrayaan 3 mission and we were the first one to go to the Mars with a very low budget.
Correct.
Right? So that kind of has inspired many people to work on space technologies.
In India?
So, yes, in India. And that's why we want these companies to go global.
Okay.
Especially to the US, where it's a much matured ecosystem and where I can see space technologies coming from India and doing well in the global markets.
Wow.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm very promising area that even in fact government has in fact launched a venture capital fund of 1,000 crores in the last budget for space technology. Right? So government is also
encouraging them
and giving grants, but the money is not sufficient even today. We still need more capital.
No, because space is a huge venture. I mean, this is you can't.
The exploratory one is going to be. It's where I very positive about in the next 10 years.
Right.
Space technology is coming from India.
Oh wow, that's good to know. I'm happy, and it gives me a very proud Indian feeling. Like yes, India is. Somewhere like I even hear that Mahinder Kapoor song, and I feel very happy. So when I see something like that happening in India, I'm like, yay, jai ho.
Yeah, it's not far away. There are multiple companies that are coming up. Like founders are coming from some interior village who are coming up with these ideas.
Wow.
So it's only that we need to support them.
Yes.
Whatever way we can. It's not only just providing capital. It's also giving them guidance, mentoring, and also connecting with the right set of people. May
Magnivia Ventures grow. May you grow. And
let's
India,
all grow together.
Yeah, may India also grow. And we see that we are now a developed country. and we also lead the world, I guess. So India has to become great again now.
Yeah, more than a leading, it has to be more contributor. So I think contribution matters more than calling yourself as a leader. So if you contribute, I think the rest of them will fall in place.
Wow. Excellent. We have very good sentiments for India, and we've had a very nice conversation today, Sriram. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And I think this is a good place to end our conversation.
Yeah. So let's go with a very positive vibe, and let's hope that the future is also
completely
fortune for us. And thanks to the team also from the back end. Helped us support this.
No, so India is now growing, and we have people in villages who are coming up with ideas. We have people, normally you used to only see tier 1, tier 2 cities coming up, but now you have villages contributing. People have so I think that is where this is the actual growth. We are not just evolving in pockets, we are overall evolving. And I think
so it's a multiplier effect that is happening right now.
Correct.
So like disposable income is, you can see consumption happening more in tier 2, tier 3 towns. That's going to be the next future for us. Like we need to fuel this engine from these tier 2, tier 3 towns, so that they will accelerate the growth for India.
Correct. And we need to also have people who have gone abroad to come back.
Yeah, it is happening.
Brain gain to happen now back, so that has to happen. And I think India, the way it is happening, and I guess with people like you, supporting this entire ecosystem and ventures happening, amazing. And I think
and only appreciate that all these ventures investors, rather than being competitive, they should also look at this more as a contribution.
Correct.
It's not about competing. No, if you just compete, it's not going to help. Only disrupt the system. So I would encourage investors, everybody to come together to contribute rather than look at it as a competition.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a delight having you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.